Wait, 5 lights? There was 3 lights.
No, there's 4.
4.
4?
They're all 4 lights.
Star Trek reference.
I'm just not content. For a minute, I thought Alan was holding a gun.
Casper 1. That's RX bar. RX bar. Really fresh. Pages.
There was no cheese on it. Yes. Going to pass.
But you're going to anyway?
Who, what, when, why, how?
Reddit hurt feelings again.
Reddit hurt your feelings again?
Stupid fucking article. Why don't you just go 4K and get 560 extra lives, you bastard?
Angry Jim is the best Jim.
Is this the headset?
No, it's for the. If you may. I don't know how loud it's set though. Woo! Just enough to like to screw with your head.
You okay?
Every time I sit here, I say we got to get a new filter. What do you call it? Pop
Kid
filter?
makes a mess. What can I say?
It's just that's organic. I mean, that's
Ken, when he's not on camera, Ken just picks his nose and flicks it at that mic, see if he can get it to catch.
Yeah, he's just like wrapping his lips around it, you know.
Ew.
No, wait a minute. No,
Ew.
nobody went that far. It
Well, I did.
Alan went that far.
was unnecessary.
It's my job.
Oh, mute that. Use that. Oh,
Benny's dank juice.
word.
Mm.
what was that?
It's somebody in the chat's drinking a beer called Benny's Dank Juice from Odd
juice.
Side Ales.
Juice. I thought.
Juice.
But
It's
you were
the
making
juice. It's an IPA, which, sucks, but it's 7% ABV. He's going to
Recipe
be
for a good
messed
time?
up.
His drank on.
Alex says as he tops off.
You got to top off. We're going to be sitting here for a while.
Now you're drinking that?
I figured I'd try it.
What's wrong? Those are good. The apple one is really tasty.
Nothing. No, nothing.
Problem?
No.
Sounds like there's a problem.
Of course not. No.
What you got there? Drinking. Drinking.
The mango bubbly.
It's a brand called.
I don't care
Bubbly.
about you. I care about the alcoholic beverage.
Oh,
It's a Miller Lite.
Oh God, dude!
Don't be such a snobbity uppity bitch on this show. Okay.
That's my fault.
Yeah,
I
I'm a
haven't
BR.
restocked on alcohol in a few weeks.
it's okay.
Beer snobs annoy the piss out of me.
So for my pick of the week, I'm going to recommend you purchase an Israeli security group.
I bet I can get them real cheap.
That ain't funny.
I mean, it's a little funny. Just because we're on this side.
We all laughed.
So I guess Jeremy's MIA for tonight.
Apparently, a BIOS update.
Yeah,
Wait,
apparently
Sebastian
Jeremy's
coming
MIA.
out?
Hopefully he's okay.
I think Jeremy said that he was going to be gone because he's going 500 kilometers north of where he's at, and we'll be out of range.
Oh, his Wi-Fi doesn't go that far?
Nobody's Wi-Fi goes that far unless you're the government.
Needs to up his Wi-Fi game. Want to bring in someone else for tonight, or are we just going to wing it?
No,
Needs
we're
to-
just going to go.
Needs to podcast in over extremely low frequency.
You know, the good thing about Jeremy not being here, there will be no talking over.
Oh, well,
That's true.
yeah, that's true.
Only one Skype person.
I will have unfettered access to the vocal capabilities of Skype.
For everybody at home, they got the same effect that you would normally get.
Josh, how much cache does your sex ports have?
Oh, see? There you go.
And
Jeremy
Linux.
has
And
been
ask-
replaced.
Not
and
nearly
ask,
enough.
what version of Linux are you on?
414.
Actually, let me read this ad copy real fast so I know what the hell I'm doing.
I mean, if
let's
anybody's got a pack of Virginia
see.
Slims, I could just light up. and we could
Required,
just recreate the
required,
experience.
required.
Hey, you got to hand roll them. You can't smoke Virginia Slims.
Well, I mean,
It's not the same.
I've got standards.
Virginia Slims. Look, I don't want any beer snobs on here, but cigarette snobs, I'm totally for.
You're totally for that?
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally, dude.
You ever even smoked?
No, not one time.
You are
you
a
go, me
very
too.
lucky man.
Not
you
one
too.
time. I never succumbed to the peer pressure.
Not even cigars?
Yes, I have done cigars, but that's like, I think the last time I had a cigar, maybe not the last time, but one of the last times I had a cigar was at a buddy's bachelor party. I smoked a cigar, we drank a lot, I threw up the next day, and God, was it made incredibly more awful because of the tobacco residue. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, cigars were my downfall. That's where I got this lovely baritone voice from. Was 10 years of smoking.
Oh, really?
Yep. Worst thing I ever tried to kick.
You could have kept going, you know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It could have kept going.
Hello, my name is Alex.
Are you making fun of me?
I am not making fun of you.
They're headed right for us.
Do the tracheotomy holes come large enough that you could smoke a cigar through there? Or is it, I mean, usually it's just the cigarette size, but
All right,
Then
all
of
right,
course you
all
can make
right.
anything fit.
Hold on a second. Yes, somebody's asking. Yeah, we have something on the partner program in here. I think.
Sylvia Jet said too soon. No, I was not doing what you think I was doing. And that would be hawking.
Oh yeah, no,
That was
no,
not.
we're not doing that.
That was not hawking.
All right, are we ready to do a show? Let's do this show. Is it 491? It's March 14th. Got it.
You want to do a thing? What the? What the
I want to do a thing.
heck is
Why
that?
can't I do a thing?
Hi, Chrome. It won't even. There's like no cursor either when it goes over. The hell was that?
Oh man, it's pretty awesome. Can we start now? Does your cursor work?
I don't know. Can we?
Still disappears.
I don't know what's going on.
It's a hard OCP website. They're always
Is that
they're always doing little tricks.
that shady fucker?
Come on, hey, come on. We're live streaming.
Did you guys get the poo-poo platter?
I'm just trying to get Kyle right roast up.
I don't really care about that part. All right, here we go. 3, 2. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 491, being recorded on March 14th, 2018. I'm Ryan Strout.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
And over to the side, we have Jim and Alex. Do we have a camera? We do have a camera.
No, we don't
Ken?
have a camera on tonight.
Oh,
No
okay.
Ken in the house?
No,
Trust
Ken-
me, Ken's not here. Ken is on a vacation or some crap.
What?
I know, right?
Yeah.
You know,
that?
I'm missing the agitation in between Ken and Alan.
And then Jeremy, Jeremy's gone. I don't know. Probably not forever, but he is gone tonight.
Hopefully not.
he
forever.
was going to go launch some sounding rockets at the Northern Lights.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a Canadian thing. I'll jive with that. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're recording live at pcper.com/live. That's a URL you can go to. It's got a chat room. It's got a live feed. We record the show there, so you can get a sneak peek of the show as it's recorded in real time. So you don't have to wait for that annoying RSS feed to come out the day or 2 days later, whatever it happens to be, or the YouTube video to encode. None of that stuff is necessary when you watch it live. And it's a whole lot of fun. So if you go to pcper.com/subscribe, you get this little page here that basically says, hey, if you want a little notification, you want us to send you an email before we do one of these live streams, which is every Wednesday, but also we will occasionally do other ones as well. You're welcome to do that. All we do is you ask for your name and your email, and we send you an email to your email. And your name and stuff. We also still have our Patreon campaign going. This is at patreon.com/PCPer. And here is your avenue if you wish to directly contribute to the website and to the guys who are writing for it, right? So if you run an ad blocker, if you think the videos we create are worth a damn, the content that we write is worth a damn, if you want to continue to support stuff we do extra like the mailbag or whatever, you can do that here. It's $1 a month, $3, $5, $10, $20 a month, up to whatever you want. And as is always the case, if you become a new contributor and or increase your contribution during the live stream, I will give you a shout out on the show. And I think nothing is better in this world than having your name mentioned or whatever you put in the name field of that form mentioned on the PC Perspective podcast.
Ever mentioned.
Nothing ever.
Nothing.
You may have noticed this awesome t-shirt I'm wearing today that is a callback to what, 2011 did we decide? QuakeCon. This is wrong way. Death Wish Raid t-shirt, which for those of you who maybe you young kids don't realize, hard drives are spinning disks and they have a propensity to fail. So, and if you put 2 of them in a RAID 0 configuration, you are essentially doubling your chances of failure. Hence the term Death Wish Raid.
You remember who coined that term?
That was Colleen.
Yeah.
So if you go to bit.ly/PCPerMerch, is that right?
Yep.
bit.ly/PCPerMerch, you get this page here where you can buy said Death Wish Raid shirt, or you can get just a PC Perspective logo t-shirt, or you can get a hot dog down a hallway t-shirt.
Josh's favorite.
You can get a PC Perspective mug, which I didn't realize, but Ken has apparently inverted it so that it's no longer just a blue paint with a white logo. It is now the blue logo, which probably makes more sense. Yeah.
And you can still wear that.
You can still wear the
enough
mug.
effort.
Yes, we talked about that last week, I believe. We can still wear the mug. There is also off screen here Super Pipe as well. Death Wish Raid, surprisingly, the PC Perspective, the classic t-shirt has been the most popular seller. I thought Death Wish Raid or Hot Dog Down a Hallway, but apparently we don't have listeners or viewers as perverted as Josh, which I guess looking back retrospectively, that makes sense.
Well, it's probably better for your monetary income.
I'm a little disappointed. I thought there would be more Hot Dog Down a Hallway. And if you don't understand the reference, we're not going to get into it here. All right. We also have the mailbag. Josh did our mailbag last week. This is
Did
mailbag
I?
number, or did we have the wrong link in here? No, this is right. Yeah,
Wow.
March 9th. It's pronounced
Gosh.
Burger.
Burger.
Yeah. Oh, see, I didn't
What's
watch
a
it.
burger?
This is where we answer some questions from you. And I guess I'm going to have to watch this last one because Josh versus Ryan fight sounds pretty interesting. I don't want to know. Nobody give me the secret. No spoilers, please. This is basically a 20-minute video where we answer questions submitted through the YouTube channel or through our comments on the site. And I think it's pretty fun. And this is directly made possible because of that Patreon. So there you go. Now you know. Before we get into excuse me, our first story, let's go through the email board here. Patrick Norton's beard is really hot, like in a dad kind of way. Just pledged $5. Thank you, Patrick Norton's
He
beard.
does have a thick beard.
It's nice. I'm
But
not
he's got
jealous.
nothing on his head.
It makes
so
you wonder
it's
what
like,
took him so
unlike
long
me,
to grow it.
who,
Yeah.
if I grew a beard, it would be like one of those wispy Fu Manchu things.
sure. Yeah, mine
and
as
it'd
well.
look awful, and like the cat would be able to lick it off without.
This is
any
12
issue.
days of not shaving right here.
So anybody else who has seen Patrick Norton's beard lately, like they would have seen watching a show he's on. Oh, like he's got a beard now or whatever. I hadn't been watching any of his content, like admittedly, and then I went and I visited him. So my first thing was just like walking up to him, and he just had this just insane.
He looks like a different person with it. I think that's
Yeah.
probably the same for most people. We also have
Hipster Norton.
Steve's Cat is Awesome. Edited their pledge from $10 to $13.
Steve's cat is awesome.
You know, I can say that from personal experience. Steve's cat is awesome.
Steve's Cat is Awesome. And then we have, I guess,
As he takes a drink.
Thor Michael Wood, which maybe I think that might be a real one. Thor. I would name my kid Thor now at this point. That's popular enough. Thor Michael Wood. Or maybe it's a joke I don't get. I'm sorry, Michael, either way. Or Thor, Michael, either way. Pledged $5. So thank you very much, Thor, for that. I've always wanted to say that out loud as well. All right, let's jump into the content. We have a lot of stuff to get to. You'll notice that we have like the AMD security stuff after the reviews. We have the GeForce Partner Program stuff after the review. So if you're looking for those topics, they're going to be here. So just you can kind of see the rise and fall thing down there.
Yeah.
In the
Kinda.
So all right, but let's start with products, actual products, hardware. Intel Optane SSD 800p review.
Capital P.
Capital P. It's right there in the title, the oddities immediately. This is a 58 gig and a 118 gig drive.
Those are oddities.
They are oddities. So this is essentially M.2 SSDs that are in between the Optane memory, which was the caching system,
Yeah.
and the 900p, which was the PCIe add-in card.
Yes.
And this sits between those, both in terms of capacity, in terms of price, in terms of performance in
So
some areas.
are these M.2?
They're
Yes.
M.2 PCI Express
2
by 2.
Okay.
Yes.
2 lanes.
Hence the double key.
They got the double key, yeah. So
Yeah,
there's-
because it's not full 4x NVMe.
Right. And
It
that's
still seems unnecessary to have the double keys. Am I missing something? Because
it's
like
just-
the
it's-
double keys used to mean MSATA, right?
No, MSAT is different, completely different kind of
Okay.
socket.
It just
but
doesn't seem necessary.
You do double keying unless you absolutely need by 4, then you get rid of one of the keys. But you
So
also
So what happens to the
requires by
keys
4.
in MSATA? Because I swore that they were 2 keys that look just like that.
for by 4, you kind of need one of the keys to be gone because that's where the pins are.
Well, yeah, but
Like that's you.
Okay,
There's actual
sure.
pins that are transferring data, right? But if you're gonna do by 2, you wouldn't do by 2 and not do the extra key because you're just skipping a possibility of not being able to plug into something that was a by 2 only slot, or some it's like a backwards compatibility thing
Right.
with early M.2 slots.
Yep.
Or sockets. Anyway, this is the same exact form factor for those
As
with
Optane memory.
As Optane memory. So that was also keyed the same way. It was
Yep.
also actually the layout was. I mean, you might as well just skip to like the second page.
Well, I want to talk about the specs real fast, right? So it's PCIe
okay.
3x2, M.2, 58 and 118 gigs. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yep.
Sequentials it's only rated at 1.2 gigabytes read, 600 megabytes per second write, which is lower than what we're used to because we're used to seeing by 4 PCIe.2 SSDs, right?
The read speed is more or less limited by the interface.
Okay.
The write speed is higher than what we saw with Optane memory because there's more dies. There's more
addressable die.
There's more addressable space.
Yep.
Like there's more, you know, more parallelism. The IOPS is, you know, a little bit of a boost over the Optane memory part. You know, but like latency. Actually, I have a beef. There's a big paragraph that gets windy in the review.
You bold something in the latency spec of average sequential.
Yeah,
so.
they're calling latency average sequential, which makes absolutely no sense to me because, first of all, sequential in terms of SSDs typically implies 128K sectors, or 128K transfer size.
Okay.
Right? How long does it take to transfer 128K? If you were going to do a latency for a sequential of any kind. With that, with those results there, if it only took you 6.7 microseconds to transfer 128K, you're doing like 90 gigabytes per second. So that doesn't work, obviously, right?
Sounds great.
I wish it was that fast, but it's not, right? Also, like you wouldn't do latency for a sequential transfer. It's like you're just doing a straight line speed of a thing, right? You're going to rate that in throughput, not in latency. And where you care about latency is random access, which is arguably one of Optane's strongest traits, right? It has amazing latency for random access, but don't rate it in sequential. Like it makes absolutely no sense to do that.
It's kind of cheating.
And it is kind of cheating because that number is really low.
Lower than you would see in a random, right?
It's lower than even it is capable of in random access.
Right.
You know, it's lower than a lot of systems are capable of doing, even if the device was super fast, right? It's just, you know, you're limited to other things in the system when you try to go that low.
Okay.
Even like a hard drive has a pretty low number for sequential latency if you did like 4 kilobyte sequential.
Right.
Because it's all going a straight line. It doesn't have to seek.
Got it.
The next thing's already there, right? Just how long did it take
You're
to
basically
transfer?
timing the movement of the head.
No, you're timing the movement of 4 kilobytes over the interface. That's all you're doing, right?
Fair.
It's just how fast can it go across the wires.
All right. So let's jump into this. So we talked about the similarities to the Optane memory, like not just similarities, but like a lot of similarities.
We'll just scroll down a couple more pictures, or actually like one more past that. So the top two drives there are the 16 and the 32 gig Optane memory parts, and then the next two are the 58 gig and the 118 gig 800Ps.
Okay.
I mean, look at the board layout. Like it's almost an identical layout. Even they didn't even, you know, the controller is the same size. There's the chip, you know, all the layouts the same. They moved a couple of components from the right edge a little bit inward on the newer parts, but the components are still the same components. They're just rearranged a little bit.
All right.
Now, all that said, there are differences. Like these devices can do power management, whereas the Optane memory parts really didn't have like idle states, so to speak. They just always consumed whatever their power was going to be.
Right.
So these are more like regular SSDs that will actually have like a standby or an idle power state.
Okay.
They will actually, you know, try to clock down the controller and stuff like that when your computer is not accessing them.
Right.
Which was kind of a requirement for if you were ever going to put these things in a laptop. Right.
For sure.
You needed them to not draw like a few watts all the time. That would just be bad.
So let's talk about. So there's some things I want to talk about at the end: the capacity issue, the pricing issue.
Yeah.
What about performance stands out to us, right? So there's a couple of things. One is because it's a by-2 interface, it's going to be limited to some degree.
Yes.
Theoretically, like, you know, pure. Is this? So this is only the 800p drive, right? So we're looking at about 1.4 gigabytes per second saturated and burst reads.
Yeah. I'm showing both there just to demonstrate.
And then about 600
no
megs per second writes. Right. Correct, I should say.
Yeah.
IOPS, very good. I want to get into the comparison side of it. What page do I want to dive into on that?
Go straight to
sequential and random performance comparisons.
Just go straight to the client queue depth.
Well, I wanted to show this, right? Because this is
for the
because there's many ways to measure performance on SSDs. You know, random is one, sequential is another, and you can have a big debate about what is most important. I think in our experience, sequential is important less often than random is important.
For people that care about
consumers.
for people that care about what an SSD does to improve your system performance.
Okay.
Right? If you're the kind of person that wouldn't even notice if you had a hard drive in your system,
Yeah.
well then you're not going to be that worried about random performance.
Okay.
Right?
So what we're looking at here though is, so this is throughput. If you look, like where's the 800p? It's down here with this orange line.
Yeah,
right
actually
above 500.
those 4 lines, well, there's a SATA SSD in the middle of them, but those 4 lines around the blue line
Yeah.
at the bottom there, those are the 4 different Optane parts.
Okay.
Right, so they got the 2 Optane memory parts.
Remember because the 860 Pro, the green line there, is a SATA drive.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And then the blue line above it is the 960 Evo, and the orange line above that is the 900p.
Actually, it's orange and a gray, or where is it? They're all kind of like overlapping each other. Actually, at that
Yes.
600 meg per second.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about at 1500, you've got the 960 Evo.
Oh yeah. Well, at
And
the
then
very
above
top.
that, you've got the 900p. So just
Yeah.
like to put in perspective, to be very fair and blunt, like sequential performance, the 800p does not stand out.
Absolutely not.
It is an underperformer in those spaces, right? Now, when you go into random, in terms of either writes or well, if we look at reads in particular, writes they're fast at the beginning, but they kind of level off.
Well, for writes, NAND SSDs actually do pretty well on random writes.
Okay.
But random writes are not the full story here. If you're looking for the random performance for what you're actually doing on a client system, that's usually the majority of that random access is reads. So you have to look at low queue depth and random reads is where you really want to be.
Yep.
So for that, in your burst 4K random read test, you'll notice that that blue and the 2 blue lines and the green line, which were all the NAND-based parts.
Right. PCIe and SATA.
Yeah, and the PCIe of which were super high earlier,
Yep.
right? They're not doing so great anymore,
Stupid.
right?
Correct.
Because they all start very low.
All 5 of these lines up here are Optane drives.
Yes, all the Optane
It's
drives.
Optane, the 16 gig memory module, and 32 gig, and then the 800Ps and the 900P.
Yeah, they all
Those are
follow
all significantly
They all
better.
follow almost the same exact profile, except the 16 gig part just kind of like starts to choke at a really high queue depth because it's you're only accessing 1 die of the memory. I think just the controller just has a hard time managing the queue on that part.
Got it.
But that thing was never meant to run at queue depth of 16 or 32.
Right.
And it would never even reach that in a regular system.
So what graph on the client QD weighted page? This first one here?
All right, so so burst random, this is really what matters more. We're focusing on the lower queue depths, and if you look at the blue bar specifically on that chart, you're looking at, okay, what's the performance going to look like for your typical random read performance? So if your system is doing a workload that's more like a 4K random workload, what's your actual speed going to look like real world? And in that case, you have the 4 blue bars at the top and the 1 at the bottom. Those are all your Optane memory equipped parts. They're all doing over 100,000
Right.
compared to the fastest NAND parts, which barely break 20,000. So you have a 5x jump.
Gotcha.
Right? You have to be doing small random access, but whenever you are, Optane is it's like night and day. It's not even a comparison, right?
Sure.
It just walks all over NAND. If you look at sequential, now you have to flip it, right? Because then we're interface limited on these parts. So whenever you go to compare against something like a 960 Evo, of course, it just, the 960 Evo has twice the bandwidth. So it's nearly twice the result in this chart. And the SATA part is roughly half, a little bit less than half of what the Optane part turns in, which is about, sort of what you would expect. The next chart down is an interesting one to look at. We usually don't include this. I've kind of started lately, this review being a good reason to. This is a percent read/write sweep. So the percent read is, if 90% reads would be 90% of the time you're doing reads, okay? Say you were doing 70%. That's a typical number you see thrown around for client workloads. Is 70% typically or higher is your percent random read activity. So you have to look at basically the right third of that chart. And where do the NAND-based SSDs sit? Well, they're around 20,000, just like we saw earlier. That's
Right.
that same number. But then look at all the Optane parts. They're all climbing upwards of, 100,000. Again, there's your 5x difference. And notice that difference applies for the majority of that sweep, all the way down to even 10% reads and 90% writes. NAND has already lost most of its advantage because it has to spend the extra time trying to do lookups for reads. So even just a little bit of reading activity is enough to, kind of throw NAND off and lose its advantage that it has. So I guess you can hit mixed burst really quick. That's our closest to like a real world kind of test, right? This is where you got a background download going on and you're trying to do the equivalent of like level loads in games or like launching relatively large applications. And if you just look at the throughputs there, now Optane starts to look a little bit better again, even though this is more of a sequential read workload. There's writes going on in the background. Anything with NAND, now it has to juggle the writes and the reads. Especially if it's caching SSD. It has a little bit of extra work to do. So that actually let the 800p get really, like within striking distance of the 960 Evo. Again, though, not as fast in this test, right? They were not beating that drive. Which is an issue, right? Because it's like, it's Optane, you expect it to be super fast.
Of course.
But this particular implementation of it is only so fast.
So let's talk about that, right? So in terms of like random read performance, it's kind of a killer product still. But because of the limitations of it being in a by-2 PCIe configuration, it kind of holds it back in some other areas that the 900p didn't have to deal with.
It does. It does. It does maintain some other advantages that are not the type of thing we focus on in a client, like a regular consumer SSD review. But if you are harder on your SSD, if you would consider your use case is much more like a workstation or super like power user kind of thing, where you're compiling a bunch of code, you're just really things that would really just beat the SSD to death, right? Where you would expect that the SSD would actually start to slow down because you're just fragmenting everything and just, that's the kind of workload where an SSD like this would shine above and beyond NAND. If you're hitting it with small random and you're doing it a lot, our suite doesn't do an unrealistic, or what I would consider an unrealistic for a regular client. Just bombarding the SSD with a random, like full span 4K random writes for like several hours. Like that's just not something that regular people do, right? But if you did that to these drives, they would still go just as fast. Right. Like they literally don't care. Right. So and that's a plus.
Performance is what it is.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about the capacity issue because I think this is the other major concern with the product, right?
Yeah. I think 118 gig is still a tough pill to
so I think the 58 gig is a super tough sell in a world where Windows 10 uses 30 gigs out of the box.
20. It's 20, and then you have your Hyper file, which is like half of your RAM.
Sure.
So that could potentially be another 15.
I think that puts the 58 in a really tough spot. I think even for a 118. So I have used plenty of laptops that have 128 gig or SSDs built in.
Yep.
And on my laptop, I can get away with that. But in general, I kind of feel like I'm storing less on my laptop than I am on my desktop.
Yes.
In general, right? I don't have games installed. I don't have as many applications installed. More than likely, right? So for a power user, for a desktop power user, 118 is still going to be a stretch. Mm-hmm.
Intel did have an argument about that point,
which was,
and they basically said, well, you can always get multiple of them and put them in a RAID.
Yeah.
But then there's a downside to that, where if you put 4 of the 118s in a RAID, you're spending $200 more than you would on a 480 gig 900p.
Yeah, the pricing is the other big issue.
Yeah, you're getting the same capacity. That's the other issue.
Why isn't there a higher capacity of this?
I mean, they can do it.
On this board, on this form factor, is it a controller limitation, do you think? Can the controller only access a certain number of die?
Here's one part to this. I don't think I've ever seen an Intel SSD with more than 4 dies per package.
Okay.
Of any kind of dies, NAND or Crosspoint. I think they just don't like stacking higher than 4 because now you run into issues where, bad yield, something goes wrong, and putting 8 in a package, you just threw away 7 of them, right? Like one thing goes wrong with one of the dies in a package of 8, your percentage of loss gets unreasonable. I think that's kind of their reason for doing that, and that might also be pushing them away from, because you would need 8 dies per package to go, with doubling the 118, right? Also, I mean, now you're in a territory where you're competing with the capacities of the 900p, which might overly confuse people.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, well, they pitched the 900p as a workstation part.
Yeah,
A super high-end enthusiast workstation part, and it made sense for that, right? But the vast majority of the audience is going to do M.2 mainstream stuff anyway.
they are.
So I still don't feel like we have a great option from them in this space. Not only that, we didn't talk about the pricing yet. The pricing is higher on the 800p than it is on the 900p,
Which is absurd.
cost per gig, which is kind of crazy.
It's just completely backwards to me.
Even if if you discount the 58 as kind of being too small for reasonable discussion to be had, the 118 at 199, it doesn't sound like a bad price, but it's $1.69 a gig, which is significantly higher than the $599 you pay for the 480 gig 900p, which is $1.25 per gig. So, and you're obviously well above of even the 960 Pro, at 59 cents a gig for its lowest capacity.
Yeah, I mean,
and I never really expected Optane to be competitive with the NAND stuff, at least in this first generation.
Right. It needs to at least be competitive with its own bigger
I would agree
product.
with that. I think it needs to at least hit that $1.25, $1.39, cost per gig at MSRP. Yeah. Now, maybe at that point, now you make the 800p feel like a bargain basement product, like it's.
But the thing is, it doesn't do as well as the 900p.
Yeah.
In that perspective, it should be a bargain basement product. It should be at least the same cost per gig. That's like the upper ceiling of where they should have priced.
Yeah.
Where they should have priced this. But to do it, it's like 1.3x or something, the cost per gig of the 900p. And, maybe if it performed the same, you can get away with arguing, well, now you can fit it in more products. And if you really want it in your laptop and you want 900p performance in your laptop, you're paying a premium, but that's not what you're getting. You're getting, it's hobbled by the interface and by the controller is far fewer channels than what the 900p has.
It's still interesting to talk about as a product of like, it is the fastest in some key ways.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like the random read performance is unmatched by anything.
That's true.
And its ability to handle reads and writes at the same time. Pretty good.
Is also extremely good.
So like I could see there being a segment of audience, right? First of all, you've got like the MSIs of the world who are going to put 2 of these in a gaming laptop. They did this when
which is also fine,
SSDs
right?
first came out.
Then it's just coming that way. You're not trying to figure out the RAID thing. You're not trying to, hopefully they're getting these cheaper for the OEM to put them in that product, and you're not paying, MSRP times 2 or times 4 for that laptop, right?
I think it wasn't nearly the product that I think a lot of people had hoped it would be after seeing the reviews of the 900p and waiting for this consumer variant to come out. Yeah. I think if this were available in like a 250 gig version, it's a much easier discussion to have because now you take away the capacity, the pricing hopefully comes down a little bit. Yep. And then like the performance discrepancies are easy to talk around, right? Mm-hmm. They're easy to go, but do you care about straight line or do you care about random more and make that call?
What I think it needs is the higher capacity. It needs a 240, right?
Yeah.
And it needs a better controller, right? They have to move away from this. It's time to.
But then they can't take the power-hungry controller that exists on the 900.
They can't do that. One's just too physically large to even fit on the thing. But they need to rework a controller, add some more channels. Make it at least comparable to the 900p in a 240 gig capacity. Then you can get away with charging that price.
Yeah.
But not as it is.
So check out the review. It's on the site. We've talked about it too long on this show already, so we're going to move on. Ken is not here. Damn him. He posted a quick review of the CalDigit Thunderbolt Station 3 Plus dock. It is exactly what you would think it would be. It is a Thunderbolt 3 dock that you can use for laptops. It makes more sense for laptops. You can use it for PCs. It seems unlikely you would need it. We've had really good success with this one. Part of the problems we've had with recent Thunderbolt docks is they have compatibility issues. We plugged this into probably 5 different machines, 5 different laptops that had Thunderbolt. They all seem to work perfectly fine, from Lenovo to Dell to Asus to whatever.
You ran into an issue with a display recently.
On a different one, on a different dock.
Oh, that was right. But this one worked properly.
Correct.
With a display, whereas
we were using a
3440
by 1440 75 hertz display. Yep. And this one ran it through just fine at 75 hertz. the other dock we had only ran it at 60 hertz. We couldn't run it at 75 hertz. So it's interesting to note that. You can see it's got SD card reader on the front, audio, USB. It's even got optical audio output out the back as well. Is Thunderbolt, pass through, display port, 4 more USB ports, gigabit Ethernet. The power supply is pretty beefy. Supplies up to 180 watts, which is good. You get the charging thing. Well, the one complaint I have is the Thunderbolt cable that they include with this is like really tiny. What is that? 18 inches, half a meter, right? So, and it works fine. Like it's normally you're going to have this dock nearby because you're going to have things plugged into it or whatever. But if you wanted to have it like underneath your monitor and your laptop out a little bit further, so you use it as a second display, it's kind of a pain there.
Yeah.
But not much to it in terms of internals.
I like the design.
Wise.
I like to go back up to the, I like how they had, there were thermal pads like in a lot of places, and basically the whole housing of the thing has a heatsink. So you're not really worried about anything overheating in particular. And it's able to be a high performance device.
Yep.
Passively cooled.
We ran it through some storage testing. We got full speed out of it. It did get an Editor's Choice Award. It's not cheap. They're $250, but that's kind of in line with where Thunderbolt docks are
that's
right
actually
now.
That's a decent price.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's a good price.
Okay.
And I've been reviewing Thunderbolt docks since when they were going back to the original Thunderbolt spec when it was practically just a Mac product or Mac accessory. And all those all those first-gen Thunderbolt and some of the Thunderbolt 2 products were really bad. Lots of bugs and compatibility issues.
Yeah.
I've reviewed all the CalDigit docks up to this one, or not including this one, so they're Thunderbolt 2 and Thunderbolt 1, and they always got it right. Right from the get-go, they were the ones that had the best reliability, best compatibility. So this product being good is not new to them. They're a solid choice.
Good. Yeah, and like I said, it's very compact. It doesn't take up a lot of space. I think the Dell one that I have, the Thunderbolt cable coming out of it is hardwired into the machine, which it's not a huge problem. It just seems a little clunky and unnecessary. And then you can't make the length of the cable longer if you wanted to, right? Which you can on this. So you can check out that review that Ken posted up on the website. And that's it. That's the CalDigit Thunderbolt Station 3. We're going to take a quick break here to thank today's show sponsor. This would be our friends at HelloFresh. They're offering everyone in our audience $30 off your first week of deliveries when you go to HelloFresh.com and use offer code PCPer30. If you're not familiar with what HelloFresh is, this is basically a food delivery service, food ingredient delivery services. They're not sending pizza to your house or something like that, although they will send you the ingredients to make pizza sometimes. The idea is they're sending you meals that are you have all the ingredients ready to go. You don't need to have, you don't have to go to the store to buy any extras or side items or whatever to make. It comes in a box that is cooled through ice packs, delivered overnight. Everything in there is recyclable. Everything is put into individual bags and organized so that you get home from work, you go to the refrigerator, you pick out one of the 3 meals you want to make for that week, get all the stuff out, boom, you're ready to go. I've actually found it to be not just, financially feasible. It's like $9 per person per serving per meal. I also I find it fun, right? Like I never cooked before. In college, I did the macaroni and cheese and cereal diet. My wife does most of the cooking at the house, but even that in those regards, like we're very adventurous. This kind of introduces you to new food items, new cooking techniques. It's actually been pretty useful for that, and also helps expand your palette of what you're used to doing. Like we make a lot of spaghetti, and we would make a lot of hamburgers and stuff like that. And now we do more unique items. You get to choose your delivery day that works for you. You can pause it on weeks when you're out of town, which is super helpful for me in particular. When I'm out of town, my wife doesn't want to get a box with 3 meals for 2 people in it if I'm going to be out. So that's the ability to kind of delay things is useful there. You get a great selection and flexibility. They offer a wide variety of recipes that change weekly. They have 3 different plans of classic, veggie, and family, and you can go in all kinds of different variants from that. From a simplicity standpoint, it's nice because it's nice to have 3 options, pick one and go. You don't spend 20 minutes staring at your refrigerator trying to look through all the ingredients that you have and figure out what you can actually make from it. And as an overall benefit, they make it, it's easy to cook, it's balanced, it's healthier than crap that I would normally make for myself as well. and there's just no more time-consuming meal planning, grocery delivery to have to deal with. So I actually really like the service. Would encourage anybody who's thinking about it to give it a shot. And when you can get a good discount and support the podcast that you're listening to, I think that's a plus as well. So if you go to HelloFresh.com, use the code PCPer30 to get $30 off your first week of deliveries. That's HelloFresh.com. Use offer code PCPer30, $30 off your first week of deliveries. And we thank HelloFresh for their support of the PC Perspective podcast. That's us.
It's great for Linux users, because why order delivery when you can have the ingredients delivered and compile your meal yourself?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
You've been waiting all night to say that. haven't you?
I've been on the edge of my seat. As soon as I saw that they were sponsored, yes.
Looks like I skipped one of these things. Jim, you wrote up a story about ultrawides. Essentially, not that we had a specific review of a monitor or anything like that, but just the idea of using it. And then we had a 3840 by 1600 monitor in here as opposed to a 1440. Mm-hmm. And you seem to believe that actually makes a difference in the usability of these products.
Yeah, I mean, the story...
Hey, Jim, before you answer that.
Yes, sir.
Could I be the king of your ultra-wide monitor?
What?
What?
Oh, Jesus. Have you never heard the song "You Can Be the Queen of My Ultra-Wide Trailer"?
I have not.
No.
But now I have something to look forward to tonight.
Not looking up that song.
You are all cultural
superior to you. Yes, got it.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Thank you.
All right. Anyway, yes, the 160 lines can make all the difference, as the title says.
So this isn't just an ultrawide story. This is a story about a very particular type of ultrawide monitor. So ultrawides have been out for a couple of years now, and they launched in basically a 21:9 aspect ratio, and those were available on the smaller end at 2560 by 1080, and on the larger end, around 34 inches at 3440 by 1440. So if you think about it, you're taking a 1080p monitor or a 1440p monitor and basically stretching it is the effect you get there. And for me, the point of this article was I like the concept of ultrawides. They look awesome. You go on like Reddit at the Battle Station subreddit.
Oh, yeah.
Just great setups. But in practice, I've never bought one or owned one because I don't like the 16:9 aspect ratio that this monitor industry has adopted, those 1080p and 1440p displays. I mean, at some point you don't have a choice because that's what's available. But I always preferred the 16:10 ratio. I liked the best monitor I ever owned was a 30-inch Dell that was 2560 by 1600. And it was just something about those extra 160 lines of vertical resolution that made a difference. Like things just fit more. I didn't feel cramped. And so when I saw these 38-inch monitors come out around the middle of last year, I was very intrigued. I didn't have a chance until recently to actually use one in person, and that was with this Acer 38-inch model. So with this, you're not only increasing the vertical resolution all the way to a true 1600, the horizontal resolution also goes from 3440 to 3840.
Got it.
And so you're getting that extra screen area, but that also means 3840 is the horizontal resolution of the UHD 4K standard.
Yep.
So if you were to use this for movies, they're great for movies that are in like a 21:9 or similar aspect ratio. You're not scaling. You're getting the full width 1:1 pixel ratio for your 4K content. So that's great. And then in practice, as I used it, that extra height, the extra pixel resolution really did make a difference. Now, it's not for everybody. I mean, some of the feedback on this was like, it doesn't, that's, you'd never really notice it, or it's, nobody should care, or why not just get a 4K monitor and get all, 2160 lines of vertical resolution. And that's valid. But if you're going to get, like with this 38-inch, and I hope that photo there kind of really gives a sense of its size, if you could scroll up, Ryan.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. So it's huge, and it's huge, but it's not overwhelming because it's wide. It's not too tall. If I were to get a 4K monitor, like Dell has like a 43-inch 4K, Allen's using a 40.
Seiki.
40. It's like a 40 or 42.
It's a 40-inch Seiki.
You get above
4K.
40 inches in a 16:9 aspect ratio, and it can almost be too big for some people, and it would be for me. Like I wouldn't have space under the monitor to put speakers or move my keyboard when I need to write on the desk or something. It's almost too big at that size. So at this aspect ratio, having that resolution really does make a difference. So the point of it was just that my revelation personally that this is the way to go with ultra wide. There's only a few options out there right now: Dell, Acer, and LG, and they only have and of those manufacturers, they only have 1 or 2 models each that are actually in this resolution. But I hope to see it adopted further, to see more technologies like G-Sync, like HDR, and things like that come to this form factor. So I mean, I'm in no way crapping on the 1440p ultra wides. Those look great, but if you're more productivity focused and you did at one point use a 1600p monitor, check these out, because they're pricey, but it's an impressive display. And I'm probably going to wait until things like G-Sync become available before I personally invest. But I was sad to box this one up.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think you end up. I mean, I can only really use so much of a 40-inch 4K height-wise.
Yeah, like
like
when you have to look up, when you have to physically move your head up. Yeah.
So I'll push stuff up there to get it out of the way, but not because I want to actively, because I want it sort of in my periphery, right? Like if I just want a movie playing in the background or just some video playing in the background, I'll just shove it up, in the upper space where I would, like nosebleed section sort of that panel. I mean, it really is. It's just the vertical part of it is really just kind of like the detractor from it. What I do like though about a 40-inch size 4K panel is that you don't have to use DPI scaling at all.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with that panel.
Exactly. Same with this.
In fact, that panel, if I was only using, a reasonable ultra wide sort of aspect of my 40-inch, that panel you tested is actually a larger panel.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
A little wider.
Because if I just take that diagonal of mine, I don't get 38 inches.
Yeah.
I get more like 36 or 35 inches out of what used to be a 40, right? So yeah, it's a huge. I mean, I saw it sitting on your desk, and I was just like, that's just big.
Yeah.
Right. Even from me also sitting at a 40 inch.
Just big.
Yeah.
I've got originally these 3 monitors I did with Crossfire when Crossfire didn't work so well, and then I went to NVIDIA SLI. But I would love to have one uninterrupted screen that is 75% of these 3 monitors, which is essentially what that is.
Yeah. I
could use and abuse that,
so to speak.
Somebody send me something soon.
I was on that 3440 at my house today, and I was doing a press call with somebody, and they had the ability to full screen the thing, and so it was a 1080p screen that they were full screening. So I just had these huge black bars down the sides of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, could somebody undo that so I could use the rest of my monitor for me? They're like, oh yeah, sorry about that. And they could click a button, and then I could readjust. And
yeah, I mean that is the one disadvantage of all ultra wides, is that when you don't have content formatted,
you kind of need a third-party piece of software to help manage some of that.
Sometimes, yeah.
Like Display Fusion, or the one the Z Move or whatever that I'll talk about in my picks, right? Because on my laptop, I'm just used to open it full screen, right, and move on. You can't do that on one of these monitors. Both it would be infuriating, and also you lose all the benefit that it provides. So very cool. Real quick. Actually, I need to change the author on this review. I did not write this review of the Huawei MediaPad M3 Lite 10. Christopher Koch did. So I apparently my input in the system, I forgot to change his name on there. But anyway, this is a $240. No, I wouldn't call it a budget Android tablet, because you can get budget Android tablets for really cheap, but a lower cost tablet than what you would see an iPad at. 19 by 12 screen. It's powered by a Qualcomm 400 series, Snapdragon 400 series. It is an 8-core system. It's got Android 7 on it. 3 gigs of RAM with 6 gigs of storage, or 3 gigs of RAM and 32, or 4 gigs and 64. We tested the 3 gigs of RAM with 16 gigs of storage. Obviously, you're going to need some external storage if you've got a 16 gig internal capacity, which I believe he says in the review provides about 7 gigs of post
Actual-
system
Yeah.
utilization afterwards. 6,600 milliamp hour battery on this guy. We've actually had this in the offices for a while. It's very evocative. What is that?
Something's going
Is that
on.
Josh?
Sorry, I'll stop. Let me mute. Stop it.
Just making sure. It's very evocative of the Galaxy, Samsung Galaxy Tab 4. Not a surprise. A lot of these devices tend to look very similar. In terms of connectivity, you've only got micro USB and a headphone jack. Nothing else here. Again, this is an Android tablet, not a Windows tablet. So this is mainly meant as a consumption device. Doesn't come with a keyboard, although you can use any number of Bluetooth keyboards and input devices with it. Christopher was pretty impressed with, the UI was clean. The amount of pre-installed apps was below average, which is good, right? You actually want that to be below average. So this is again, it's not a purely stock Android experience. They still wrap their own UI around it, and as a result, you get things like this where there's significantly more spacing before icons than maybe you would want there to be.
For safety purposes, it is important to wrap your own UI.
It always, yes, you got to wrap your UI.
Otherwise, you'll get viruses, and your user experience will go downhill very, very quickly. Nobody will want to use your product anymore. It's terrible.
Yeah, it does have app drawer support, so kind of like their basic multitasking.
Did you say app drawer?
I did.
Drawer?
Oh dear.
Drawer, DRAWER.
What if you drop
what they
your
call
drawers? Will it expose all your apps?
It will, and your assets. To that degree, it's very true. And you can see here, if you ever are looking at PCPro.com and need to add up some numbers about how much all the stuff that we're talking about you can't afford, now you can do this in a multitask Android fashion. Pretty simple, straightforward after that. He said use cases, in terms of user experience is very good. The camera was okay. Again, kind of what you would expect on a low cost.
I didn't know he had any of those.
What?
I didn't know he had any of those.
This review just got weird.
This is not.
Everybody's
That's not my
got
picture.
beanie
I didn't take
babies.
this picture.
I know.
This is Stuffy the dragon from Doc McStuffins.
I'm with you. I get it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he gives some picture examples here.
He
Some
looks
of them
traumatized.
Yeah, it does. So you get some ideas of what the noise level would be. This is a really good picture to look at noise because it's all white, bright LEDs.
And dark's in there too.
Yeah, dark's in there too. So interesting. Like I said, it's about $240 on Amazon. Qualcomm Snapdragon 435 powered. It's a pretty good device. He actually really was impressed with the IPS screen on it. You can definitely find Android devices for less expensive than this, but you can also find them for a lot more than this. So if you're comparing it to like the Galaxy tabs, for example, I think you might be better off with something like this. But I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot of experience with the Android tablet market over the last year or so, but probably for decent reasons. So. All right, let's get into the big story
the
news
fun
items.
stuff.
I got a stock tip for you.
Oh yeah,
certain technology companies were maybe worth $0.
Yeah.
they should file for
Maybe.
bankruptcy immediately.
Immediately.
And their stock is worth. They should be worth $0.00, not $0, $0.00.
Yeah. Not even a penny stock.
You don't want to round anyway. They wanted to be very upfront.
In fact, they just need to stop selling all products right now and go into bankruptcy because that's where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Okay. So let me give my quick synopsis here, and then Josh, I'll let you
Prolapse? No, I'm not going to prolapse on this
Pontificate?
story.
There you go. I was going to say proliferate, but I don't think that wasn't the right term.
You don't want it to proliferate either.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not that kind of show, Ryan.
So a security research company called CTS Labs came out with a report on Tuesday that said that the Ryzen and EPYC processors all had some collection of security vulnerabilities up to an account of 13 newly discovered security flaws on these parts. They released a website, some videos, and a report, like a white paper type thing, detailing what these were. They didn't go into details about how to integrate them,
Reproduce them.
which is standard practice because you don't want to
Yep, right.
give it down.
Right.
But they didn't give AMD a whole lot of time, like apparently less than 24 hours notice about this. I think, well, Josh, I'll let you comment on this. All else being, if we take all the drama around this out of the story for the immediate, is there still cause for concern for the security vulnerabilities as they are presented?
You just had to ask that, didn't you?
I did. I
mean,
asked
it
the
is
tough
kind
questions.
of the basis of the story, but why would you have to ask it that way? Okay, you know what? These are vulnerabilities, but they're secondary vulnerabilities that are essentially like other known vulnerabilities that have been in software since the 90s. So 3 out of the 4 are ones that could potentially be somewhat destructive. But to be able to enable any of those, you need to have elevated administrator privileges on that computer. And so if you're a hacker and you already have elevated administrator privileges on the machine, you've already got the keys to the castle. I mean, you're in. You can go in there, you can then flash the BIOS and inject any kind of malware you on there. You can take advantage of the security processor that AMD has, which is based on a ARM Cortex A5. Mm-hmm. And I think the OS is made by Tritonic. Is that? Anyway,
started with the T, but I'm not going to quote on that. Yeah.
So it's so a security processor is an embedded processor that exists outside of the main OS that has its own protected memory, protected firmware that can't be flashed, and it kind of exists as its own domain. And this is like a ARM's Trust Zone. Intel has something quite similar to this, and so it's interesting for many, many reasons. One, the security group is not a group that anybody had heard of until now. Two, they gave AMD less than 24 hours notice before they were going to publish this information. Three, they actually talked to press entities before actually publishing anything online. And four, am I counting right?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, why not?
You're on a roll.
Someone within the CTS labs leaked the document, their entire thing on AMD, to this group called Viceroy, which is a South African firm that specializes in shorting stocks. So
cool.
Some time ago, they let out all this terrible news about one of the banks in South Africa, and they were shorting the bank stocks. And next thing you know, there was a run on the bank, and the stock fell. I mean, shorting is kind of weird anyway. You borrow shares, right?
Yep.
You sell it to somebody else.
Yep.
Correct? You have that money.
You borrow shares from somebody, telling them you're going to give them back to them, right?
At a specific price.
So I mean, who the hell does that? But it happens.
It happens.
And so then, they sell it to somebody else, and then you say, okay, in 90 days, you need to sell me back these shares, or whatever amount of time you do, and you need to sell me back these shares at whatever price they are. So if it goes down $3 per share, if it was $10, you're making a 30% profit.
Yep.
On money that you never really had.
Sounds awesome. I love this.
Yeah. So anyway, this group is quite famous for this, and it's just so strange because they wrote literally a 33-page document about why AMD is going down, and they released it within hours of the CTS Labs report going active. Now,
which means they had access to the report beforehand.
Yeah.
That the security company
leaked it to them.
And I think it's important to point out, like, the security company pre-briefed some media about it. At least a couple of handful of people. They also pre-briefed. They also talked with some secondary security companies as well to validate the to apparently validate the vulnerabilities, which is
proof
again
of concept software.
which is kind of normally accepted, right? But I would say
I think that talking to press before actually talking to the company in question is a problem.
I feel like that kind of happened with Spectre Meltdown as well, like at least, or is like immediate, maybe not.
I don't know. They had a lot.
No,
of
it's 90 days, 90 to 180
No.
days.
I'm talking
to
about
expect
they
meltdown.
pre-briefed them before it went public.
Oh,
Oh.
sure.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But the Intel knew about it.
Yes, they didn't pre-brief media before they pre-briefed
Right.
the companies. Yes,
Right.
no, that's what I'm saying.
Microsoft, Intel.
But what I am
AMD,
saying is odd
yeah.
is to pre-brief a company that exists to sell and trade stocks in whatever capacity you want them to be.
Yeah.
Seems very odd. Yes. It seems outside the realm of what you would expect.
Yeah, and their chief technical officer had a thing out today that said, I think that the security firms are not doing a favor to consumers by not releasing this stuff right away. And there are kind of two ideas behind that. One, if you release it out there and say, hey, this is a problem, we're not going to do any proof of concept code, but we're going to tell you that there's a problem out there, then they feel that the companies are going to address the issues faster than if they had done it behind closed doors. But at the same time, there are a lot of really, really smart people out there who are looking for any kind of flaws to get into. And if you release this information saying, hey, here's a general area of, we're not going to give out proof of concept code, but here's a general area where there are issues with this product, and we're going to do it as soon as we found it. We're going to release it and we're going to talk about it, and we're not really going to tell the manufacturers about it. Which is the better model?
Yeah.
For me, it is definitely you talk to the manufacturers first. You do not give people ideas of stuff that you have found before you give these guys a chance to work it out and do some security patches and changes. But going back to the very basics of it, 3 out of the 4 are basically kind of BS in that you've already got to have administrative access to the machine to be able to implement these. Now, if they had a primary infection, okay, go ahead.
I agree that they're I would consider them secondary risks because it has to be in a pre-compromised system because you have to have a really dumb user that's giving people root access. However, I do think that the potential to overwrite the firmware of the secure processor, regardless of whether or not you have root privileges, is serious.
You can't overwrite the firmware of the secure processor.
I thought that was
you
part
can
of the
overwrite the firmware of the system, and there could have secondary effects on that. But on the actual CPU itself, with the little OS that's kind of built in there, it's non-volatile. So you can't.
I'm pretty sure. Well, okay. Well, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that it involved overwriting the firmware of the secure processor.
Essentially the BIOS.
No. The BIOS. The BIOS is used to update the secure OS firmware itself.
Yeah.
That's why, updating the BIOS forces it to push the update to the secure OS firmware, which is then when you would have the problem because that's undetectable, and in theory, that firmware could prevent itself from being updated.
Just like how there's, just like how on the Intel side, as part of some.
I think you're talking about like the AGESA code, because the secure processor has kind of built-in stuff on the CPU level. It's not very big. It's not a large cache, but it's non-volatile. But like the AGESA code, you can change that, and then it will change the characteristics of the secure processor, but not the firmware of the secure processor. I mean, I'm nitpicking here, but I'm just trying to be accurate.
Okay.
Well, on the Intel side, I think where Ryan was going was and what we think might be the case here is that, what's the name of the Intel thing? I forgot.
Intel Management Engine.
Yeah.
IMEI
or whatever. You go to do a BIOS update on those systems, and as part of that BIOS update after the next reboot, the IME will update its firmware. Something that you might have not thought would be a firmware updatable actually was, as long as you had some signed binary or whatever the heck it needed to be able to get in.
Yeah.
which I thought was something, along the similar lines.
They
of
talk
this,
about
but-
having persistent malware on the Secure OS processor
Yeah.
itself,
So how
not
would you
in
how
the
would you
BIOS
get it
of
there?
the system.
Right.
Well, isn't that the part that requires the administrative privileges already? You already have escalated privileges. You can write to this. There's some sort of shenanigans with it's accepting unsigned bytecode, but I didn't see a confirmation
know.
of that.
Yeah, but I think the mechanism is so first you need admin to be able to update the BIOS on a system that could update the BIOS from within the OS.
Right.
In the first place. Now your BIOS package, like your firmware that you're overriding there, would contain code that would in turn go in and try to hack into this.
Right, and that's supposed
Secure
to be
section.
that's supposed to be signed using public-private.
It's supposed to be, but supposedly there is a way around it.
Right.
Is part of what they're alluding to in this paper.
Yeah.
Right.
And
They're
Because
like,
if you're able to flash the firmware of a machine, you can do damn near
yeah, you can do a lot
anything
of stuff.
to it. And so, yeah, it's just, I'm nitpicking there, but, like the Agisa code and stuff like that, you can adjust that and make changes that will bypass some of the things in the secure processor, even though the firmware on the secure processor is set. It can't be flashed. It's non-volatile. But
Yeah.
there are workarounds. So this is kind of the issue that we're talking about. And again, it's me splitting hairs, but it's what it is. But if you've got that level of access already, you're kind of screwed. Now, one of the scenarios that I talked about is, say you were able to compromise a machine, and then you were able to go in there, flash the firmware, make these other changes that are pretty low level through administrative access, and then remove the initial compromise so that when antiviruses or the regular IT workers look at it, it's like there's nothing wrong with this machine. Well, at a deep down level, there is.
Mhm.
It's still compromised.
Right,
And so that's probably the scariest scenario of anyone, is that you could have this compromised machine that, for all intents and purposes, at the OS level, everything looks fine.
Yeah,
but they're
correct.
at such a deep level, they still have access to the machine and
That's-
protecting
that's actually-
memory and all these things.
That's actually better than a rootkit.
And that's actually been explored
is
in
a
the past.
rootkit.
Say again, Alex.
Now,
That's been exploited in the past, where you have the Windows automatic autoloader drivers that are bootstrapped through the BIOS, and vendors can slipstream their own drivers in. I believe that's been exploited in the wild, where people can insert, malware into the autoloader. You wipe Windows, you reinstall. First thing it does is reinstall it.
Yeah, you're still hacked. Yeah.
Yeah. So Josh, what I think I want to wait till for next week at least is to, like, AMD, I think we'll have an answer by the end of this week in terms of either validating or invalidating these things as even being possible, and the proof of concepts that they put out. It seems unlikely at that case, now that they've had 2 or 3 other security people come out and say, yes, we've looked at these POCs and they seem like they're accurate. And we'll also hear from Andy about what these fixes are. Do we just leave it at that for now? Like, do we need to have hysteria, not have hysteria because of this stuff? And, how much does the cloud of the other BS around it, I guess, cloud up the kind of potential security risk?
it's just, at this point, another potential infection that you could face if it gets past the primary stage, or the primary infection. So somebody sends you a picture, it's not a picture, and it says, hey, click this, look at the size of those whatever on them, and you open up this thing and it
As
says,
Josh
do you want
would.
to access this? And you click your little administrative yes icon because you really want to see the picture, and nothing shows up, and you're like, well, what the hell, this is a bust. And you shut down your machine and you start it back up, and things seem to run a little slower, and you don't really care much about it, but you've got an infected machine.
Right.
And so as long as you can avoid that primary infection, these secondary ones are not going to matter. Now, I don't know enough about the Chimera aspects,
The
which
chipset-based one.
affect the chipset made by ASMedia. Apparently, ASMedia made some backdoors in previous chips that they kind of got into some trouble about, but I haven't heard a huge amount or many actual instances of this being exploited, but it is a potential avenue that, again, I don't know enough about. I don't know how it can be effective. This is the one where I believe it is somebody can inject it via a signed driver or an unsigned driver.
I think it had to be a signed driver. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's that one needs some more visibility on to see where we're at with that. But for the CPU stuff, it's all essentially things like, to make programming a whole lot easier, we have all these things open as long as you have administrative access, because you want your Microsoft Word to work. You want your games to work. I mean, how many games require administrative access to be able to do all the things that they need to do fairly simply?
All right, that's we've talked too long about this one as well. We'll talk about it more next week once AMD kind of comes out with their official statement on this. We also want to get to another thing before we get to the other controversial topic of the week. We have some patrons to get to. Chronarch edited their pledge from $10 to $11. Thank you, sir, for that. Why doesn't PC Per have a cat like Steve? Just edited their pledge from $13 to $20.
Because Ryan's allergic.
Have you not seen my cat?
Well, that's true. Josh brings cat on to the podcast.
That's true. And Ryan is allergic.
Wait, this is really funny. She just crawled under my legs.
You guys need
She
cat?
heard her name.
I am cat.
Get the PC Per cat. Look at her. Look at the kitty.
Cat is not looking at the
cat's not looking at us.
camera. Come on, cat. Look, cat, I'm right here. Cat, I'm right here.
No, will not look.
Does not care.
The cat's having none of that.
We also have There Are 4 Lights.
Good job.
Just pledged $3.99. I'm glad that ugly nerd Steven is gone. Just pledged $1.
What?
I don't know what that.
Stephen Hawking. Too soon. Too soon.
Oh, that is too soon. That's way too soon.
Wow. And I said it out loud because I didn't know what it was referring to. All that for $1? That guy, whoever you are, you
can have your dollar
He
back,
got his
man.
money's worth, I'll tell you.
Got to get up to $1. And Justin Owen edited their pledge from $3 to $4. So thank you, Justin, for that. All right, let's get into the next story here. This is published by our good friend Kyle at Hard OCP, who dove
been
into
drinking any Winchester bourbon at all.
No, exactly.
None.
So this is, I'll just read this post that Jeremy wrote up on the site. It's about the GeForce Partner Program. Hard OCP have posted an article looking at the brand new GeForce Partner Program, which NVIDIA has announced, that has a striking resemblance to a certain Intel initiative, which turned out poorly. After investigating the details for several weeks, including attempts to talk with OEMs and add-in board partners, some serious concerns have been raised, including what seems to be a membership requirement to only sell NVIDIA GPUs in a product line which is aligned with GPP. As membership, the GPP offers, quote, high-effort engineering engagements, early tech engagement, launch partner status, game bundling, sales rebate programs, social media and PR support, marketing reports, marketing development funds, end quote. This would cut out a company which chooses to sell competitors' products from quite a few things. At the time, NVIDIA has not responded to inquiries, and the OEMs and AIBs, which Kyle spoke to, declined to make any official comments. Off the record, there were some serious concerns about the legality of the project. Expect to hear more about this on various sites as they seek transparency, that which NVIDIA director John Teeple mentioned in his post.
I mean, this is like the equivalent of, it would be a horrible thing if you were to, it really comes across like that.
It does, yes.
So it's not like they're just flat out saying, that, you can't sell anybody else's stuff. But It's like, but if you want to be in this program that you really should probably be in, and you'd be at a significant disadvantage if you weren't in, compared to those other guys that were paying their money.
Yeah,
that were paying their lunch money to the bully.
Sure.
Here's the thing: is that it wasn't really lunch money before. I mean, it was like you had a thing, you contract where you bought chips from these guys. They gave you support in designing your PCB and the memory and some of the specifications, or you could use their reference design, and that was it. Now, this is, if you're going to have a gaming brand, and you're going to use NVIDIA products for this, NVIDIA products will be the only products you can use for that gaming brand. So the classic example is ROG, Republic of Gamers.
Yeah.
So Asus has their ROG brand that has products from AMD. It's got products from Intel. It's got products from NVIDIA in both the graphics
It does,
and
yes.
chipset and motherboard sides. And so suddenly ROG is now shrunk down into only NVIDIA graphics cards.
Motherboards now that hasn't
out,
happened,
GPUs are out.
right? Like that hasn't
What's
happened, right?
No, I do not believe it has occurred yet.
Right.
No.
But this thing unchecked could lead to that, is the point.
Yes, that based on Kyle's like reporting. So I think it's important to note that like NVIDIA has a blog up about this, and they claim the partner program helps gamers know what they're buying, right? And they talk about transparency. I think, like the public perception that NVIDIA wants of the GPP to exist is that, hey, if you buy one of these products that is a GPP, that is a GeForce partner, you have some kind of expectation of reliability or performance or engineering expertise or something to that effect. The fact that they say it helps gamers, the one I have asked many questions to NVIDIA of this and have gotten 0 responses back directly. But I haven't gone into any of the asking AIB stuff that Kyle has gone into over the last week.
Right.
And in my mind, kind of looking at what the program does, I don't see a benefit to the gamer here.
Right.
Right. Like unless NVIDIA comes out and claims that there was a lot of shoddy production or shoddy quality out there that we weren't proud of, then point me to those results. Right. Point me to those results and say, we're going to prevent this from occurring in the future. And they don't do any of that.
And we haven't seen that either.
And I would agree with that. I don't look at the ecosystem and say, God, make sure you stay away from brand X because they're always bad products.
Yeah.
Which I would think you would have if that were really the case. Josh, did you read anything else about what Kyle says in the story that might stand out? You're muted.
Nope. He's muted.
Muted. Still muted.
See, this is why people need to watch the video.
Correct.
You miss gems like
the
that.
entire video to see me struggling in real time.
He basically turned into Beavis
Which is
for a few
essentially
seconds.
100% of my time.
Sure, fair.
So anyway, the problem is there is a lot of technical support. There's marketing dollars. There's social media support that NVIDIA has, a pretty good amount of. And these things will be taken away from or not given to individuals or companies who will not go to this. I mean, MSI has a gaming brand. Gigabyte has a gaming brand. Alienware. All of these guys have gaming brands. And suddenly if all these other, these 2 other manufacturers are shut out of there, and all they have is if it's a gaming brand, it's NVIDIA. Yeah. And that's all there is to it.
Kyle does say in the chat that Asus has already signed with that
GPP.
Yeah, that's what Kyle says. I think it's obvious to see what the problem would be if this program is being, pitched as Kyle says, right? Like now AMD, there would be no Radeon products in Republic of Gamers, right? And now that doesn't mean, I don't think that would mean that Asus couldn't sell Radeon graphics cards. They'd have to be in their own brand or something, or unless they, I guess I don't know. Kyle could answer that too. Like if they create a separate gaming brand, would that be allowed, or would it be that you can't have any gaming brand specific? That would seem impossible to me. But
I don't think we know that from what is there.
Yeah, and it's also pointed out this isn't just AIBs, but also like OEMs. Kyle mentions Dell, Lenovo, HP, these types of guys that.
So like the Alienware.
So like an Alienware brand, if you wanted to be part of the GeForce Partner Program, in theory, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. And again, to be clear, NVIDIA says in their statements that it's a non-exclusive agreement. That you don't have to stop selling competitive parts.
Right.
But
that seems contrary to what he keeps hearing from.
It's contrary to every bit of evidence that Kyle has dug up, and Kyle's been doing this longer than I have. He's been involved in more of the shady backroom dealings of this stuff than I have.
Do you remember his Phantom console
Yeah, the
issue
Phantom console stuff.
That he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees.
Yeah, and he was
Just
right
to
about
prove
the
his
Intel.
point.
He was right about the Intel AMD working together on graphics stuff, right? It wasn't a licensing deal. It was a product purchase deal, but Kaby Lake G was a real product and it came out. And he tried to tell everybody about it a year before it came out, and nobody believed it. 6 months, 8 months before it came out, or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you take NVIDIA's position at face value, hypothetically, and they are working with a company like Asus and ROG, and they're putting their marketing dollars and their social media influence into it, and they're promoting 1060 mobile laptops, gaming laptops with the 1060 mobile chipset.
Yep.
And it's great, and they're going to talk about gaming performance. They're going to show Skyrim or not Skyrim, a more modern game, Destiny 2, whatever. Oh, look at this, it's great. And the consumer, and understanding that most consumers don't follow this stuff. Most consumers buying gaming laptops are not watching this podcast, reading Hard OCP. They go to the store and they say, oh, I want an ROG laptop. I saw a commercial on it or something.
Yeah.
Oh, here, this one's cheaper. And they don't notice it doesn't have an NVIDIA logo. Let's say it's a Kaby Lake G part,
Right.
for example.
Right.
Because that has nothing to do with this, right? And they buy it and it doesn't perform to the same level that the commercial said. Okay, I can understand that's NVIDIA's position. I don't agree. I think that's kind of nonsense. But I guess that's their point, is they don't want, if they're going to put, because they don't sell a lot of cards themselves. They have their flagship parts that they sell, but they rely on their partners. If they're going to put that effort into their marketing and into their development with their partners, they want to control that experience.
Yeah.
Again, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's going to play out practically. The other thing is, and I guess it is too late because some companies have already signed on, but let's say enough partners resist and they don't get exclusive access. They don't get early access. They're not able to fine tune the power delivery of the cards and the cooling. And now you've got a generation of NVIDIA cards that come out that are not performing as well as the reference design.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a negative that NVIDIA, that's blowback on NVIDIA now, that you've got a generation of products that their partners are having trouble with because they didn't get that exclusive access.
And I mean, I think we can all agree that NVIDIA's goal really has been, like, they want to be the gaming PC brand, right? They want GeForce to be that. And I think they've actually done a really good job of already accomplishing that. You know, they have a significant market share advantage. Even if you look at the last quarter where NVIDIA or AMD had a 6-point bump, it's still 66% NVIDIA. I listen to a lot of gaming podcasts that aren't PC-centric gaming podcasts, and all of them default to talking about GeForce. They talk about GFE, they talk about GeForce. They don't really talk about AMD and Radeon brands, you know, for whatever reason that may be. You know, years and years of marketing. Is this just another, step to try to go down that path, right? You know, maybe. Does that?
Well,
does it
they're
make
also
it right?
on the verge of threats that they haven't had to deal with in many years. They've got Kaby Lake G.
Kaby Lake G is an
Intel.
interesting competitor, you know, that really competes against like 1060 and below.
But that's the growth market. The mobile gaming is where they're going to make their money.
I would even say like your theoretical example of like the ROG system you go into Best Buy makes sense from like a systems standpoint. But from add-in boards, it almost doesn't make sense to me because if you're buying an add-in board, you know it's ROG, GeForce, GTX, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. It's ROG, Radeon, Vega 64, whatever. Right. It's not like they just call it. It's the ROG 1200. Right. And you go buy that product.
But I think the discrete card is the collateral damage of something like this. I think this is clearly all about the mobile space.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kyle says you're right. The Kaby Lake G spawned this in its entirety. So NVIDIA feels the need to defend its territory that it has staked out, its market share that it's staked out, especially if you realize suddenly that Intel and AMD are going to team up together on stuff. That wasn't an option before. It wasn't something you had to deal with before. So we'll see.
Because they were mortal enemies until semi-custom came along and would deal with anyone.
All right, let's move on. We got 2 more quick stories to talk about. We'll be following up with this, I imagine, for the rest of my life as well. So this is another hard OCP story, and I really just put this in here because I wanted to put the headline that Jeremy wrote on here. And in retrospect, maybe it was a poor decision on my part. If you're looking for advice on how to install a cool Threadripper Hard OCP have quickly become the site to reference, and I would agree with that. They've benchmarked a majority of the water blocks comparable with AMD's big chips, as well as published videos on how to install it in your motherboard. Today, the chip is out again. The site is out. No, wait. I don't know what he was going to say
again.
There. This time, it is getting with manually applied TIM facial. Check out Kyle's tips on getting ready to coat your chip with the best way to spread the TIM and ensure even cooling.
And Japan, the island, entirely just flipped over after that entire reference.
Yeah.
It's just so bad.
Yeah, you know, that's what happens. But there you go. That's a finger.
He's just, I'm
going to assume it's Kyle's finger.
Doesn't the oil from your finger interfere with the thermal
a lot of that
material?
stuff is, a lot of that stuff is oil based anyway. It's suspended in a.
Kyle, I'm going to play your video. Don't send me a
based,
takedown notice.
Well, it's not bodily oil based, or other bodily fluid based.
You don't know that.
Wow.
Have you seen the manufacturing plant? I don't know.
Have you smelled that, Tim? It smells like bleach.
Let's see it. Where's that?
Whoa.
Where's that finger?
How do you get that on there so even? Just
yeah.
he's just using his finger.
Scraped it around with his finger.
Okay.
As long as he doesn't lick it afterwards, it's probably okay.
Do not
he's wearing
eat.
a glove.
He's got a
Because
glove.
you know what?
Okay.
No
What
glove.
a cheater.
No love.
It's protection, man. He's got protection
glove,
before
no
he went
love.
in. Come on.
Yep.
I think somebody should have Steve's cat should do this. That's the way
He's really scraping that around kind of hard.
He really is. He's rubbing it in.
He's rubbing it all over. He is
I tell you what,
rubbing it in.
it does appear to be like cleaner.
That is true.
Right.
It's evenly distributed.
And you can save that glove for repeat applications.
Is someone going to post this to Oddly Satisfying tomorrow?
You just turn it inside out.
It might already be on
shake it
Oddly
real
Satisfying.
hard.
All right. Our last story of the day, FreeSync and FreeSync 2 coming to the Xbox. This is kind of a surprise announcement over the weekend. AMD's Antal Tungler was on the Xbox live stream, which was entirely too long, where they announced that FreeSync 2 specifically was going to be coming to the Xbox One S and the X, which allows compatible displays that accept FreeSync variable refresh rate over HDMI to work on these consoles. Now, that's great news. Keep in mind, no TVs actively support FreeSync. And the number of monitors that support FreeSync over HDMI is smaller than otherwise. And, there's not a whole lot of, I don't know if there are any like large form factor, large design monitors that support HDMI over FreeSync. HDMI over FreeSync, when it originally came out, was kind of
FreeSync over HDMI.
Sorry. Yeah. FreeSync over HDMI was a little more of like a budget option, right? They were trying to get it to lower costs, which was great. But because it's an Xbox that doesn't have a DisplayPort output, you're limited to what HDMI is. Yep. So what I'd like to see is it will support HDR content. It'll only go up to 60 hertz, right? So you're not going to get higher than 60 hertz output from the Xbox. And I think the question is that I have been trying to get a person at Microsoft to answer at this point is what happens when you go below 30, right? A lot of the FreeSync HDMI displays don't even hit 30. They might be like 40 to 60 FPS ranges because, again, they're supposed to be on the lower end cost side of things. So do we have one that goes down to 30? And then when you get into mini games like PUBG, for example, that dips below 30 pretty frequently. And that
especially on the S.
Yeah, especially on the S. And that's like where you want FreeSync the most. You know, at 45, you want it. And at 25, you really want it. So I need to do more research and see if there are FreeSync displays that have LFC over HDMI that only have, go below 30. Because you have to go below 30. You have to at least hit 30 in variable refresh in order to do LFC doubling up to 60, right? So, and also I'm very curious, and I didn't get this answer, do games have to be aware of this, or does just the console need to be aware of this, right? I imagine there are some games that do like lock 30 for a reason, and if you suddenly just turned off VSync on those games, like at the driver level, Microsoft's driver level, that it may cause some problems.
It would probably look pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was funny during this segment, they specifically never said television. They said monitor. And then when they showed the setting in, where it's going to be in the settings, it was like a 24-inch.
Yeah, on this Asus monitor. So you can see the setting in there. And, if you have a monitor in your room and you have a gaming PC and a console hooked up to it, this is perfect. But for the vast majority of people that are playing Xbox, they're not playing on monitors, right? Now, if you suddenly told me there was a 50-inch, 40-inch monitor that had HDMI FreeSync that met all these requirements, especially if you get into HDR, now you're talking to a compelling, like, do you do that specifically for that capability?
Yeah. Well, there are some TVs that support FreeSync.
No.
Well, adaptive, whatever you want to call it.
Are there?
Yeah, I thought there was a couple.
I don't think there are, because the HDMI spec, the official HDMI spec doesn't have it in until, because Adaptive Sync is a DisplayPort standard. It's not until HDMI.
I thought it was like 1.4a.
No,
something like that.
HDMI 2.1 will have a variable refresh in it. But you're not going to see that until the very end of this year, probably 2019 TVs. We can look it up and see afterwards, but yeah. So I think this is really cool. I think don't get overly excited because like it's not.
Oh, I'm overly excited.
Also about the whole LFC thing. Does it even support it? Because remember, LFC is not driven. It's not done by the display and FreeSync. It's done by the driver.
Yeah.
So did Microsoft even like develop that part of the driver? Did they include it in there? And
well,
again,
I hope they implement it
because
that would be garbage. Because if you're trying to do a 30,
well, you could just say between 30 and 60 it works. And
but
if you go below 30,
don't go to 30.
There are some displays that go to 30.
Very few.
Yeah, that's why that was the whole pretense of my discussion.
Oh, is that one? I don't think that display they were showing even.
I don't know which display this is. It's an Asus display of some kind. But
do we have any boxes that are in the Alpha Ring for the Insider?
No, and I've been trying to get one added to it.
Yeah.
That's
the other caveat is this is only coming out, I think, this coming week for the Alpha Ring. Yeah. So the very invite only highest.
And again, I've gone to AMD and I said, hey, here's my account address. Please put me on that advanced ring. If you have an HDR FreeSync display that you think works with this, send it to me so I have that because I've got all the older ones.
Yep.
So we'll see. Hopefully next couple of weeks we'll know for sure. All right. It's been a long one. Let's get to our picks of the week. I'm going to go first this time because I'm ready and prepared. You ready for this? It's a dumb name. How about Basta Computing and an app called ZMover? And this
sounds like something I would recommend to you, Ryan.
This 1999 website that has two
is
cows.
Is it kind of like Nubbins
on it.
Are the Nubbins with ZMover?
It's close to Nubbins. It's actually a really interesting application, right? So we were talking about 3440.
Is there there's a screenshot there or no? Is there really not screenshots there?
No, there is. But they look like that.
Oh, well, that's
so. Imagine you had multi-monitor or you had an ultra wide, and you open up application windows and they kind of reset and move, but you have them in a nice spot where you love them to be.
Yep.
I like all these things to be formatted this way.
I love them.
This allows you to set everything up the way you want, and you open up this application, and you basically drag and drop, this little icon right here over to the window. It imports the Windows settings and kind of recognizes it. You say, I want you to remember the set position, the set size, the set state, whether or not it's restored or whatever.
You can make it on top of other stuff.
You can create layers of things.
Yep.
And then you hit OK. And then once you've done all that with all of your windows, you hit this button here, and it will move everything into that spot.
Yep. Right? Or it'll do it all the time. Like you can
have it poll every once in a while and it will move things around. To me, this is really useful as I just started using this laptop with one of those Thunderbolt docks with an ultra-wide monitor attached to it. So when I'm only on my laptop, I just full screen everything and it's fine. Obviously, that's a useless thing to have. And, unplugging displays all the time creates this mass
windows all over the place in the wrong place.
I get like physically angry about how things don't go back into the place where they were because Windows should be smarter than that. Yeah. And it's not. So because of that, you have to buy this $20 application that does that. One button push, all the windows go to where I want. And
it is handy.
Done. And it's super handy to have.
Yep.
The other one I tried before this, what was it called, Jim? Display Fusion?
Display Fusion.
It allowed you to create virtual monitors inside your ultra-wide that you could then full screen into. But if you didn't want to full screen into them, but it also didn't remember and redo everything. So you still had to drag it, full screen it, whatever you wanted to do. Right. So there you go. It's Basta, BASTA Computing, and the app is called ZMover, the letter Z, Mover, all one word. So it's 3.5 megabytes.
It's a tidy app.
And you can download it through 2 cows. because it's $19.99.
That's
I
still,
don't,
that's still a
rootkits
thing.
I don't
Ryzen
know what else to
processor
say. I clicked on the link because I wanted to know if that website even still existed, and apparently it does.
That application has been around and has been like $20 since like Windows 95.
Yeah. Well, you know.
It's a newer version now, but
Alan,
you know,
If
Are you
you're
the
onto something good,
yeah.
Okay. Who's
yeah,
up
that's-
next?
that's me.
Alan, what do you got?
So I was looking for a thin Qi wireless charging pad, and this is the thinnest one I could find so far, barring getting off of eBay somebody who just sells you the coil and a PCB that sits off to the side of it.
Seems fine. Seems fine.
Don't get me wrong, that is a thinner version.
Yeah.
But this was the thinnest one I could find where everything is just all in one, like, I don't know if it's waterproof or just water resistant package. They show pictures in the thing where there's like water sprayed on it. You know, I don't think there's really any seams on the thing for water to get in anyway.
Do people like confuse this for like a coaster or something?
Possibly, maybe this is what they think about. I don't know, but it's 3.5 millimeters thick, which is pretty darn thin for a charger.
Somebody in the chat just told me that Two Cows owns Hover.
I thought it was. I knew they were related. I thought it was the other way around. But maybe
Says-
I would think it's the other way around.
It says, yep, Two Cows owners also own Hover.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
What? My mind is blown. Anyway, continue.
anyway,
Sorry.
Diversification.
$20. $20 wireless charger, really thin. No chat room. It does not charge your energy drink.
If it refilled it, that would be
It may
fantastic.
magnetically resonate at a specific frequency if it thinks it's a phone.
$20,
but,
not too bad.
It's $20. You know, it's not bad. It's just a USB. You know, I think it charges it. It's 7.5 watts.
You can put it in your what?
Yeah, see that's how thin it is. It's super thin.
Oh, okay, they're just showing that as a thinness, not as
Yeah.
a you should keep this in your
Like
wallet.
just carry this in your wallet. It'd be kind of dumb since the cord is like 3 or 4 feet long, so it'd be kind of stupid to have a cord hanging out of your back pocket. But yeah, super thin. Like maybe if you wanted to like embed some chargers into some other things, like into like a tabletop
Fair.
or like, you know, you wouldn't have to take that much material off.
Did you measure what the speed of the charge was?
I mean, 7.5 watts. What do you mean?
Okay, it goes up to 7.5 watts.
Yeah, that's the max it's supposed to be able to deliver.
Okay.
I think it's.
Is that the
draw-
max of what the iPhone does or the Samsung phones?
No, those
they
will
go
do
higher.
Those will do 10.
Okay.
I think, but you know, it's close, and it's kind of some of a compromise for being as thin as it is.
Sure. All right. There you go. Who's got the Cisco?
Well, there's only one other
Guess
pick
Josh.
on the list. There's Josh. Yeah.
See if he's unmuted or not. Nope, he's looking
Do
at the
I
mute
really
button.
wanna
There he
unmute?
goes.
I don't.
I'm gonna get you a physical button for this.
Let me change my orange background so I don't look like a zombie. See, much better.
Less zombie. Nice.
Anyway, you know, I didn't realize that Cisco actually produced routers at this price level. Not only do they have a $45 one, but they've got like a $29 one. But I don't feel comfortable with the $29 one, so I got the 40. See, look, you already got $70 off instantly of $39. Sure. Anyway, metal case, Cisco
Nice.
quality.
I would like to point out all three of the pictures that Amazon has included here are identical.
Outstanding, strong work, Amazon. So anyway,
Great.
yeah, it's you know what? 8-port switches are inexpensive.
They are.
$40 is not that much more expensive than other 8-port switches, and it's a Cisco. So, yeah, give
you're
it a
a big
shot if you
business-
want some little higher end.
Don't buy this
If you're a big business, you can't buy it.
That's
No,
only for
you
small.
gotta
And
be
if you're a
small
consumer,
business.
FU still can't buy it. It's
No.
only for small business.
You have to buy the Linksys.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say this is just like a Netgear router.
yeah,
that
it's
I,
just
that
like
I
a
have
Blue
at
Netgear
home.
router.
Yeah, I wonder
pretty
why
much.
that is.
It's not possible. This one is for small business.
Yeah, but it's Cisco.
They make a 5.
All right,
but is
alrighty.
it-
The name.
Is it actually Cisco or is it just like their Linksys stuff that has the nice branding?
Yeah, it's probably Linksys stuff
mean,
that has the nice
They're
branding.
both kind of the same at this point.
It's an 8-port gigabit switch for $40. I mean, who
All right.
cares?
Well, I've gone through a number of switches that
I have
failed.
gone through a number of switches here as well. Yes. All right. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. PCPer.com/podcast is the URL you can go to if you want to see more lengthy discussions about technology and news. We'll have our links to the videos, the MP3s, the RSS, all the show notes that we talked about, links, all the stories we talked about are all included there, including our picks of the week if any of those sounded interesting to you. We appreciate everybody's support. Hold on, before I completely cancel out, we did have a new pledge from Space Jam Flam. Pledge $3. Thank you, Space Jam Flam. We greatly appreciate it. And with that, everybody, we will see you next week with another episode of the podcast. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Are you sure you're going to see us next week?
Won't see me.
Not him.
Won't see Ken.
Shit.
Won't be me or Ken.
Where's everybody going?
Ken will be at GDC, and I will be on a golf trip.
Oh.
I'll be playing golf in Orlando, Florida. Let me rephrase this. I will be swinging golf clubs in Orlando, Florida.
He'll be slicing and
I
hooking.
tried that once.
I haven't touched a golf club since last
After a night
October.
in jail,
Not supposed to swing them at people.
You're not supposed to. Well, I didn't know you couldn't walk into Universal Studios and swing golf clubs. I mean, there was no sign that specifically prohibited that.
Yeah, I got a golf date with President Trump after he took my advice on the Qualcomm Broadcom stuff.
Yes.
You know.
The chat's been correcting us, and it's.
Hey, do you know what?
Belkin.
It is National
Belkin.
Podcast Naked Night next Wednesday. What a coincidence.
It's odd
So
that we just had to sponsor cancel
What's
for next
Belkin?
week. It's odd.
Belkin bought Linksys from Cisco,
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah.
which explains why the WRT 1900 AC is such a pile of shit.
So does Cisco have any consumer brands now?
Small business.
Cisco.
Business.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, Josh, when you do the podcast next week, we do have an ad. You're not reading it. I pre-recorded the ad spots, so you're safe.
Really?
Yeah.
Who's it from?
RX Bar. What's that say?
Because you know what?
Bar?
Makeup RX is awesome.
RX Bar, which is a protein bar, like energy bar company.
You want
Does
Josh
it
you want
have
Josh to read that ad?
selenium?
Yeah, Josh is like their perfect customer. He
It's
needs
the
that.
perfect guy to read that ad.
He looks a little pale.
Need some energy.
I need energy.
You look like you
I
need
need
improved
protein
nutrition.
and
in your life.
selenium. Right.
But I pre-recorded it because we have never done that ad before.
And it's Josh.
And I had to have it. It specified me in that one, and that I had to have the product on the table, and I had to show the
Specified
product.
you.
They did. They did. They're actually.
I mean, you would be my go-to spokesman for a
So they're
health-related nutrition
professional.
bar.
Clearly, look at me. Don't forget, everybody, bit.ly/PC per merch. You too can have this T-shirt.
And mug.
And
Yeah, I just saw a mosquito
We need to
fly
update
in
it,
my
though.
house.
I mean, regardless of drive technology, any RAID 0 configuration is a death wish.
yeah, I know, but the pictures are hard
Yeah.
drives, right? And
Yeah.
that might confuse some of the young kids.
Ah.
Yeah. Apparently, Steve from Gamers Nexus was watching, and because he said that Steve's cat is awesome. Quote was pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Gotta go, Steve.
Was he not in the chat?
no, he's busy. That dude does nothing but create content.
Well, yeah.
Good for him. It's good stuff. That's going to be it. We're not going to really have a post show tonight, guys, because we did a podcast that was long. So
Long.
Josh proliferated, if you will.
Pontificated.
He proliferated as well. I saw it.
There's only one semen involved.
I don't think that's what that means. I think you guys are prophylactic is not the same as proliferate.
Does that make make
Proliferate.
more?
Well,
increase
if
rapidly
I'm
in numbers.
proliferating,
Yeah.
So,
So he,
that's kind of right.
he's got
Wait, now we have
kids.
more than one Josh? What's going on here?
got two.
Oh no.
The Mediterranean faces an ecological disaster if the seaweed continues to proliferate at its present rate. Electromagnetic radiation can only proliferate cancers already present. There you go. That tells me electromagnetic radiation cannot cause cancers.
Yes, it can.
No, it says
said
this
that?
statement. Google said that.
In what?
Electromagnetic radiation can only proliferate cancers already present.
Oh, and apparently I'm butchering malware.
Yeah, you called
If
it
you know
malware.
anything about
I've always called it
genetics,
malware. I don't know why.
What is it?
Nine,
Like
nine,
freaking-
MAILMALE. Which one?
Is it chainmail? Malware?
No.
What the hell are you doing with that
I
word?
don't know. It was
It's
just
mal.
wrong.
It's malicious. It's
malicious. Yeah, it's malware.
Yeah.
It's not malicious. It's malicious.
If I send you an
So
AOL CD with malware on it.
Malware. Malware. Yeah, actually, Google lied to me on that quote. I searched up on proliferation. It's an undecided. It's not a finalized scientific fact at any point.
Okay, here's what happens.
Oh my god. Okay.
High energy radiation penetrates your cells and rips apart DNA. That DNA then replicates, and there are many errors.
Cancer.
Some of which die, but some turn into super replicating cells, which turn into cancer. It's just high energy physics.
The very sciencey looking paper I've looked up said it wasn't proven yet. What?
If your immune system does not identify those, then it turns into tumors, because fully fast replicating cells are tumors.
Not a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out in the chat room. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.